A very good afternoon to everyone and welcome to Symbolic Expression session of today with Manisha. So today we are going to take a very interesting topic, that is classroom engagement strategies aligned with the National Education Policy 2020, that is re-imaging the teaching for the 21st century classrooms. The National Education Policy 2020 brings a new vision for India's education system. It focuses on helping the students become creative thinkers, problem solvers, and responsible citizens. And to achieve this, the National Education Policy 2020 encourages teachers to move away from the old methods of memorization and the lecture-based learning. Instead, it promotes a more active, fun, and student-friendly way of teaching. Now, this symbolic expression lecture, that is classroom engagement strategies, will help the teachers understand and apply the new teaching strategies that will make the learning more meaningful. Now, these strategies, when you talk about, are designed to increase the student interest and participation and understanding. They include the things like group discussions, hands-on activities, use of technology, the real-life projects, and giving students more voice and choice in the classroom. Now, by these engagements, techniques and strategies, the teachers can create the classrooms which are very inclusive in nature and focusing on overall growth of the students as the National Education Policy 2020 recommends. The aim is to prepare the students not just for the exams but for the lifetime. So, let us discuss these strategies one by one. The NEP 2020 aims to transform the level of creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking. It encourages the teachers and adopt the modern interactive technique methods and inclusive methods which are focused on the real life skills. To bring this vision to the teachers can use this high impact classroom techniques that make the learning more engaging and meaningful for every student in the classroom. So, the first we are going to talk about is the experiential learning through real life projects. Second, flipped classroom approach. The third is multilingual and culturally inclusive activities. Then we are also going to discuss think, pair, share and Socratic circles. The use of technology and the digital tools is another activity what we are going to discuss. Last but not the least, what we are going to talk about is the personalized and the competency based learning. So, we are going to start with the experiential learning through a real life project. Experiential learning encourages the student to engage in hands-on activities where they can apply their theoretical knowledge to the real world situations. Now, this method moves beyond the passive listening and promotes a deeper understanding by doing. Aligning with the NEP 2020, which emphasizes the holistic development, critical thinking and the practical application of the knowledge. It encourages the project-based and vocational learning starting from the foundational stages. For example, in a social science class, the students are asked to conduct a survey in their neighborhood on how people segregate the waste. They collect the data, analyze the results and prepare a preparation proposing and prepare a presentation, better waste management practices. This not only teaches the data integration and interpretation, but also builds the awareness and the responsibility. Further, there are certain applications of experiential based learning. The first is science students conduct a soil test in their garden and study the fertility of the soil. Business studies students design a business plan for a local need. Geography student map the rainfall data using the local newspapers. There are multi-grade applications also, like primary. Visit a local farm and draw a plant life cycle. The middle school. Interview the grandparents about changes in the communication over decades. The senior secondary. Developing a working model of a sustainable energy systems. So this experiential learning is a very good growth for all the students, which make the class very, very interesting. And for the different grade levels, we have different types of experiments which can be used to make the classroom more and more engaging. It is having lot of advantages. It encourages the deep understanding through the real world applications. Students learn by doing the things, which promotes the long-term retention and the comprehension. They understand the concepts in the context, not just the theory. Let me give you an example. A commerce student managing a mock business venture learns taxation, accounting and the customer relations practically rather than just reading about them. It also builds the critical thinking, collaboration and reflection. The students face the real challenges that they don't have a predetermined answers for the experiment they do, which require the problem solving, the teamwork and a thoughtful evaluation. Like for example, the science students designing a low cost water filtration system for a rural community develop the analytical thinking, coordination and the ethical responsibility. It also enhances the student engagement and the ownership of learning. Since the student choose or co-design their projects, they feel more motivated and responsible for their learning outcome. A student-led sustainability audit of their school encourages the eco-awareness and gives the learner an agency in initiation of the change. It also promotes the interdisciplinary learning. The real life problems and the projects which are cross subject boundaries. It helps the student integrate their knowledge from the various disciplines what they learn. For example, a project to build a school garden involves the biology, that is the plant growth, and mathematics, that is the area planning, and the language, that is the report writing, making learning very, very holistic. Now we are going to see some disadvantages of the experiential learning. The first is, it is a time consuming process and requires the extensive planning. The real life projects need a careful design, the timelines and the supervision and coordination, making them harder to manage within the tight academic schedules. For example, a month-long social impact project may interfere with their syllabus completion for the board exams. Now comes the assessment of the experiential learning. It can be subjective. Unlike the standard test, evaluating the projects may vary and based on the teacher judgment, leading to inconsistency or biasness. For example, two students contributing equally to a group business model may receive a different grade based on the teacher precipitation or documentation skills. It may require external resources or the community access. Projects often need partnerships with the local organizations, technology, or expert mentors, which may not be available to all the students. And it is not always aligned with the exam focused curriculum. Experiential tasks may not directly prepare the students for the standardized test or the textbook based questions. Now, coming on to the second aspect, that is the flipped classroom approach. This approach reverses the traditional teaching model. The students learn theoretical concepts at home through the videos, reading, or the podcast, whereas the class time is then used for the activities like case studies, discussion, problem solving, and collaborative learning. It is aligned with National Education Policy 2020, which promotes the flexibility in learning and the use of the digital content. In the new Education Policy 2020, flipped classrooms help personalize learning and foster a self-paced exploration. That is, when an individual wants, it can do and learn the classes online with the help of videos and the digital resources. For example, for a lesson on quadratic equations, the maths teacher shares a recorded explanation and the solved examples in advance. In the classroom, the students work in the small groups on the work problems applying those equations. The teacher facilitates and clarifies the doubt and supports the critical thinking. There are some applications of the flipped classroom approach. History students watch a documentary on the Indian independence movement before the class and discuss the key takeaways in the class. The English students read a short story at home and come prepared to debate its moral applications and implications. There are also multi-grades applications when you talk about flipped classrooms. For grade 6, that is science, students watch an animated video on water cycles and construct a 3D model in the class. For grade 11, economics, read about supply-demand curves before the class and apply the concepts through simulations using the market scenarios. There are certain advantages of flipped classrooms. The first is it promotes a self-paced learning. They can rewind, revisit, pause, play at their own sweet will, which will enhance the individual learning mechanism. For example, a class 10th math student watches a recorded video on the equations solving and replays the tough scenarios and the sections as many times as needed before the classroom. There are free up class time for active high order thinking tasks. That is, they understand the concepts at home, all the theoretical aspects, and they are open for deeper activities in the classroom to do a deep analysis, to understand the high order thinking levels and collaborative problem solving methods. It builds the independent learning skills also, like a student assigned to learn about the global trade through an online module which takes the notes and prepares the question for the classroom discussions. It also encourages the collaboration during in the class sessions. There are certain disadvantages of the flipped classrooms. We can say the limitations. The students without the internet or the device access may be left out. So, it increases sometimes the digital divide, and there is digital inequality which can make it further hard for the students to benefit from the flipped learning. In order to fill the gap, the government should spread the digital infrastructure everywhere so that we take the advantage to each one of the citizens for the flipped classroom and similar other approaches. It also requires a high initial teacher effort to prepare the digital content, which is also a big thing. Some students may skip a pre-class work affecting their class participation, so the advantage will be limited in that case. The parents may not need to supervise the younger learners. The primary level students often need help using the devices or staying focused, placing an extra responsibility on the parents if you talk about a low grade and using the flipped classroom lectures. The engagement of the parents and the teachers both will be high. So, there are advanced implementation strategy. We need to record the micro lectures for home viewing, design the classroom activities in advance, and include a formative assessment also in advance. The third is your multilingual and culturally inclusive activities. Incorporating multiple languages and celebrating the cultural diversity enriches the class student understanding and promotes inclusivity. It respects the linguistic backgrounds and connects the learning with the identity and also with the community. It is also aligned with the new education policy 2020. For example, during a language class, the student may encourage to share the folk tales from their regions in their native language. Later, they translate the story into English or Hindi, fostering a translation skill, the cultural exchange and appreciation of linguistic diversity. Furthermore, if the music class, the student learn and present some traditional songs from the different states, the role play, the cultural rituals and the debates on the regional art forms in the sociology or the political science. There are also multi-grade applications which are available, like for the lower primary it is different, for the middle school it is different, and for the secondary school it is different. Like for lower primary, teach the basic numerology using the local rhythms. Middle school translates the songs into English and explores the theme. For the senior secondary, the comparative study of the regional newspapers in the multiple languages. So, it respects, validates each student identity and diversity. In a diverse classroom, It allows the student to share the stories or the greetings in their mother language like Tamil, Bengali, Marathi, etc., which builds a sense of belonging. It improves the comprehension using the familiar language context. It also encourages the social cohesion, appreciation of diversity. It also promotes the creativity and multiple modes of expression. Using the multiple languages or the cultural symbols, which allows the student to express the ideas through the songs, plays, stories and the artwork beyond the traditional methods. There are some limitations like teachers must be proficient in more than one language. Developing multilingual teaching material can also be sometimes challenging. Make more than monologue and monolingual instructions is also a problematic thing certain times. It can be hard to standardize the assessments across the languages. So, we use the multilingual visual aids, celebrate the language week, encourages the student to interview the family members in the regional languages and present in the classroom. So, these were the activities which are very vital to make the 21st century challenges ready students and make the classroom more engaging. Thank you so much.